There were no other teams more affected by the short offseason than the two teams that were left standing at the end, the Los Angeles Lakers and the Miami Heat. There were only 71 days in between the last game of the 2020 NBA Finals and the start of the 2021 season. Only 71. The shortest offseason of any team sports in history. And it definitely showed with multiple injuries and inconsistent play from both teams throughout the season. Fatigue played a huge factor, and there wasn't nearly enough time to recover in the offseason that short. Obviously, with an appearance in the NBA Finals, there are always high expectations going into the next season. But the Heat got off to a shaky start, and they weren't able to keep their lineup together, not only because of injuries, but also with health and safety protocols because of COVID. When Jimmy Butler played, this team was so much better as they had a 33-19 record. But when he did not play, the team's record was 7-13. Butler's impact goes well beyond his stat line. He's never been a guy that will average more than 25 points consistently. His style of play elevates the players around him. Butler plays with heart and toughness and will allow other players to elevate by being unselfish. He had career highs in rebounds and assists per game and also shot just under 50% from the field, which was also a career high. Young players like Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo were expected to take another leap in their game to help continue the progress of the Miami Heat. Adebayo's defense is next level. He literally can lock down a guard on the perimeter and switch back onto a big man and play great low post defense. Many people expected a big leap in his offensive game this year. He had a lot of moments of progression in his offense, but he didn't have a major improvement in that area. I believe his offensive production this past season is what you should expect every season from here on out. Someone who can give you just under 20 points per game, grab around 8 to 10 rebounds, and help facilitate the offense. I don't believe Bam has the skill set to be an elite scorer in this league, and he really isn't wired to take over games offensively like that. I look at Bam as a more talented Draymond Green, someone you don't want to be the focal point of the offense, but does impact a lot of areas for your team. Now, Tyler Hero had a legit disappointing season. This is the guy that the Heat basically made untouchable in trade talks after the NBA Finals. I thought Hero would be a nice player, and he did show out during the bubble, but I never thought he had the potential to be a perennial all-star type of player, and given a chance to trade for a Bradley Beal or a Chris Paul, I would have pulled the trigger immediately. There's a big difference between a good player and an all-NBA player. Hero had a sophomore slump to say the least. He went from a deadly outside shooter to a below average this season. And to think that the Miami Heat did not want to trade for James Harden, and Hero was mainly the reason why, is ridiculous. There's levels to this. Hero is a solid player. Harden is a top 10, top 5 player. You win a championship with those type of players. Overall, the team defense was not the problem for the Miami Heat. It was definitely the offense. After being the third best three-point shooting team in the league, they ranked only 19th this past season. They went from the 7th best offensive rating to 18th. And they completely crashed and burned in the NBA playoffs against the Milwaukee Bucks. The two best players, Butler and Adebayo, simply did not show up. Before the trade deadline, they made a big move by trading for a player they were planning on pursuing in free agency, Victor Oladipo. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to play enough games to even evaluate how good the team can be with him on it. Another season goes by with injury concerns for the former All-Star. This could end up being very beneficial for the Miami Heat in negotiations this summer. After so many injuries and also being on track to come back from his current injury sometime in December, the Miami Heat maybe could sign Oladipo to a much smaller contract, which could be very helpful in improving this roster this season and beyond. But the question remains, will he ever be able to stay healthy long enough to have a real impact for a team again? That's one of the problems the Miami Heat has to face this offseason. The other problem is that one of their main free agents they were planning on going hard after was Kawhi Leonard. There are only a few players that a team like the Heat will go above and beyond to add to their team. Kawhi Leonard is at the top of that list. He played like a superstar against the Mavericks and the Jazz in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Kawhi is a legit two-way player who could elevate the offense to a level the franchise hasn't seen since LeBron, D-Wade, and Bosh were on the team. But Kawhi had a devastating knee injury in Game 4 against the Utah Jazz that ultimately ended their pursuit of their first championship in franchise history. At the time, Nobody outside the Clippers organization knew exactly how bad it was. But recently it was revealed that Kawhi suffered a partially torn ACL and should be expected to miss at least 6 months. But that's if you're really optimistic. And with a player like Kawhi being very cautious in the past about coming back from injury, there's a legit possibility that he could very well miss the entire 21-22 season, especially with the NBA returning back to its regular start time in October. With that all being said, would it be enough to steer the Miami Heat away from signing him this offseason? Kawhi is a player who hasn't played more than 60 games in the regular season in the past 4 years. And you add this injury to the mix, and the Miami Heat may be reluctant to wait for him to recover. So what are the other options for this team? With the Heat having the bird rights to Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn, and Oladipo, they will be able to go over the salary cap and re-sign them. And a sign and trade is always an option. The other free agents they should pursue are Kyle Lowry and Lonzo Ball. Lowry would definitely fit the culture in Miami. He brings toughness, grit, and leadership to the table that any team will welcome in a heartbeat. The 35-year-old is entering his 15th season and will provide the Heat with championship experience. Lowry averaged 17 points, 7 assists, and 5 rebounds per game on 44% from the field and 39 from 3. Lowry will more than likely be a cheaper option than a player like Lonzo Ball. Lonzo is going to be a restricted free agent, and the feeling around the league is, if you want to steal him away from the Pelicans, you need to offer him a max deal. Because it seemed that the Pelicans don't want to break the bank for him and is more than willing to let him walk. Signing Lowry and re-signing Oladipo and Robinson is definitely a possibility for the Miami Heat, and they will have to address their power forward position. Jay Crowder is showing you right now playing for the Phoenix Suns how valuable he really is. And he was a huge loss for the Miami Heat after their trip to the NBA Finals. He was the missing link for this year's Miami Heat team, and they have to find a cheap option to try to duplicate the impact he gave. Free agents like Jeff Green, PJ Tucker, and Paul Millsap come to mind when you think about realistic options for the Heat at that position. Having a normal offseason would do wonders for a team like the Miami Heat. And with some key additions to the team, the Miami Heat could find themselves at the top of the Eastern Conference next season.